The Suns are anticipated to make moves this off-season, and with their top off-season priorities being revealed, CJ and I are going to be diving in, looking at some things explained that the Suns should do that we have talked about on this channel. While looking at those moves, though, Jusuf Nurkic is still a name that remains on the trade block among the rumor list. Could he be listed out and possibly traded? We'll be looking at a rumor trade as well in this episode of Suns Digest. I'm Bruce Velez alongside my co-host C.J. Pierre. And before we dive in on all this news, that number has been dropping dramatically. CJ and I greatly appreciate it. We're now at 86% of our viewers are not subscribed. If you guys are part of that number and you guys do enjoy the daily Suns content coming to you guys over throughout this entire offseason, make sure to hit that subscribe button as we're still on the road to 1,000 subscribers and would greatly appreciate it. But let's dive into the topic at hand today. Make sure to grab a snack. And like I mentioned, we're going to be diving in looking at the Suns offseason plans. Now, CJ, before we kind of get into this video, before we kind of get into it, me and you have kind of broken down and talked about the Suns offseason plans. And I want to let you know that you're going to be excited to look at this list because it's got your number one priority listed among the top. We'll be looking at this article from Donnie Druin, looking at the three things the Suns would look to accomplish this offseason. And number one is that point guard. CJ, as we know, you have been screaming about it. I've been screaming. The Suns would like to add a point guard to the rotation, even after they've just dealt away Chris Paul away last offseason and dealt away Cam Payne. Now, CJ, we've kind of looked at an abundance of point guards, some guys that we have liked, but now that we've got some confirmation from the Suns here, hearing that they want to go after this point guard, how does this make you feel going about this?
Music to my ears, man. This is exactly what I wanted to hear. I know you and I have talked about it. There are guys that have been in the comments just talking about how important it is for the Suns to add a point guard to this roster. I know that there are people out there, some pundits out there talking about how the Suns aren't looking, they don't need a traditional point guard. It's not, the Chris Pauls of the world. It's not a 6'2" point guard game anymore. And that's not what it's about. It's about someone that can facilitate the offense, someone that can be the quarterback on the court, putting people in the right positions, putting people in places that allows them to succeed. That is, yes, I know that there's more of the combo guard, two guardy offense where the guy who's running your offense is also somewhat of a primary scorer. So when you look at guys like a Damian Lillard, for example, Luka Doncic, he's the facilitator, but he also runs the offense. But when you have a team, particularly like the Suns have, when you guys have guys like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, where their primary focus is to score the basketball, you don't have someone that is going to be their primary job to make sure they're put in positions that are going to allow them to succeed. And that's why, particularly in the playoffs against the Minnesota Timberwolves, we saw so much isolation, so many times where had guys holding the ball and not much movement going on elsewhere on the court, and not a lot of movement off the ball. There was one possession, particularly in that Timberwolves series, where Devin Booker got the ball with 20 seconds left on the shot clock, and nothing happened on the court until 5 seconds left on the shot clock, where he had tried to attack the basket and they ended up missing a shot. That's not how you run an offense. That's why you need a facilitator, someone who can just set everybody up. I don't care if he's 6'2", I don't care if he's 6'8", I don't care if he's 7 feet tall. You need a point guard to run the show. And the fact that the Suns had noticed that, recognized that they didn't have a point guard on the roster at all is super good to hear. If it's a backup point guard, if it's anyone that can just run an offense, the Suns desperately need that.
And you brought up some valuable points, CJ. I want to start off with the point where you brought up, doesn't matter if he's 6'2", 6'5", 7 foot. We just need that facilitator, that guy to just get the offense going. And that's what we've been screaming about. Again, just because we say point guard, it doesn't have to be a 6'2", Chris Paul type of player. It just needs to be it doesn't need to be a starter. We know Booker can facilitate. We know Beal can facilitate. We know Kevin Durant can be facilitators. But at points, we need somebody, like you mentioned, to just set up the offense. Be that guy, to be that quarterback. Get those plays going. I know with Frank Vogel, there were some concerns with, some playing routes. And with Budenholzer, we might see some changes. But still, addressing that backup, that point guard, even if it's a backup, a guy who can just close out games, doesn't even need to start them, is huge, especially alongside guys like Booker and Beal, who can be creative shooters. Now, CJ, as we keep diving in, looking at this article, we mentioned the point guard. This article mentions two other needs as well. one of them being upgrading the backup center. So we previously talked about Drew Eubanks. Suns apparently want him back. Eubanks would like to get back, but we haven't really heard much reports since then. So possibly could the Suns be upgrading and looking at a different backup big and the young athletic wing. Now Nazir Little's name has also been on that trade block, a little bit of a younger, maybe not as athletic wing, but a guy who has some potential, has some prowess. Now, looking at this salary cap here, you can see there is really no backup point guard, is no really backup wing. So I do have a question for you, CJ, and that is what need do you think is the most valuable? Do you think that backup big is the need that the Suns should be going after over that young athletic wing, or do you think the young athletic wing should be prioritized, even if they're rumored to be re-signing Royce O'Neal? And drop down below in the comment section what you think as well.
Yeah, particularly when it comes to those two options, I think the thing it depends what they end up doing with some of the pieces that are currently on the roster, obviously. But as things stand right now, I think the backup big is the thing that they need to focus primarily on, and finding someone who can fill in the gaps that Nurkic isn't going to be able to fill. I know, particularly with Vogel, they ran the small ball lineup with KD at the five, and basically spreading everything out. But that's not KD's. That's not putting KD in the best position to be himself. He's going to be alone in there trying to man the paint on defense, and then on the offensive end, it's basically, if you're not playing five out, you're not really putting KD in a position to succeed, because most of the time when you're playing five out with guys like Beal and Booker on the court, you're going to end up having KD standing alone in the corner, and that's Kevin Durant. Like, you don't want KD just sitting in the corner on multiple possessions at a time. Having another backup big, primarily maybe a young athletic backup big, as I know we're talking about a young athletic wing, but a young athletic big is something that I think the Suns might also look at. Look at how lucky the Dallas Mavericks got by drafting Derek Lively in the first round last season. There are plenty of guys that we've talked about, that are going to be in this draft. Khalil Ware is guy who I'm going to be harping on as someone who I would really like the Suns to draft. But then there are also other guys that could potentially become available in free agency that they might be able to pick up on a veteran minimum, who have some athleticism, have some size, and is able to provide some depth in the front court. I think that would be the Suns' primary focus when it comes to like the young athletic wing. That's more, if they pick up someone and can hold him down as a prospect, that's fine. But even if they added someone, the wing position for the Suns is so full. You're going to have Beal, Booker, and KD in some capacity, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal. There's Wayne Wright. Like, there's so many guys currently on the roster that kind of occupy that wing spot, that I think adding another one, there's no guarantee that that guy's even going to see some playing time. If they bring back Bol, that's a young athletic wing that maybe that fills that void, but we don't even know what kind of playing time he might get. So I think it's really upon the Suns to really look at the holes, look at the things that went wrong over the course of the season, and notice that their glaring needs, obviously, as we talked about, are the point guard, but the lack of depth in the front court was a big thing. Obviously, if they want an improvement over Eubanks, then that is something that they're going to need to address pretty quickly once the offseason gets underway.
I agree, CJ. And you brought up, again, some great, valuable points. When I kind of looked at this, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought that the young athletic wing might be a bit of a better production way to go. But you kind of convinced me to go on that other side. Talking about that backup big, you brought up the fact that they could go after some veteran guys in free agency, Kello Ware in the draft. There's so many opportunities to go after that young athletic big, especially if Jusuf Nurkic's name is the name that's thrown around the rumors the most, due to the fact that he has the most tradable salary for the Phoenix Suns, even if they do have to attach a pick to it. You brought up the fact that they have Grayson Allen already on an extension, are going to be rumored to be bringing back Royce O'Neal, expected to be re-signing him. Who knows if Eric Gordon, Josh Okogie, Bol will be there. That's another, kind of young athletic guy that you already have at that wingish position in our eyes. I think they already kind of have that role figured out. Maybe if Nazir Little goes for another, untapped potential piece, that could be that young athletic wing. But if not, I agree. Addressing that backup center is the key solution for this Suns squad. Now, as we get into the next topic at hand today, CJ, we'll ponder on that guy that we were just talking about in Jusuf Nurkic, looking at a possible Jusuf Nurkic trade. So if we want to look at this article, the Suns are urged to trade with the Pelicans from Kevin Hicks, in which the Suns can land two quality rotation players in a deal with this Pelicans team. The Suns would receive Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance Jr. in return for Jusuf Nurkic and the 22 overall pick. And to go over some synopsis, obviously Daniels was taken in the first round by the Pelicans, would be selling a little early on him alongside a versatile big in Larry Nance Jr., a good rebounder, good rim protector, could be valuable for the Suns, with them losing obviously Valanciunas in the offseason as he is a free agent. Now, obviously, them bringing in Jusuf Nurkic could be that solution for Valanciunas to put alongside Zion Williamson, and then get another additional draft capital piece to possibly strike in the draft. CJ, when you look at this trade, what are your initial thoughts when looking at this move for the Suns and the Pelicans?
Well, Bruce, I'm gonna surprise you. I'm gonna flip it on you real quick here. I want to hear what do you think? What do you think about this trade? Before I want to hear what you have to say first before I
All
give
right.
you uh,
All right,
my analysis.
I like this little switch up. I kind of I think that this move would be better for the Suns. I think Dyson Daniels is a young, intriguing piece to kind of bring in, be a playmaker, being a facilitator, being a guy who could play some solid defense. And Larry Nance Jr., very solid rim protector. We saw him kind of excel in that play-in tournament alongside Zion Williamson. I think he could be a good shot blocker, good rim protector on a low value as well. Doesn't necessarily need to be that starting big, but could kind of be that backup big, or even have similarly with this Suns team two decent quality bigs that kind of rotate and rotate out. If you have Larry Nance, go in free agency, look for a guy like Drummond to have kind of alongside him, and then you can kind of switch interchangeably who's doing better, who's not in foul trouble. Ultimately, though, I don't know if the Pelicans would accept this deal. I think that getting Jusuf Nurkic and a 22 second round pick isn't worth the value that they're giving up. So I think that the Suns should take this deal, but I don't know necessarily if the Pelicans would go through with it.
Well, obviously, I think if this deal were to go down, I think it would be helpful for the Suns. I think you would add a young point guard. You'd also add a guy who can play some five, play some four with Larry Nance Jr. So I think it would be a good idea for the Suns. But I might surprise you with this. I actually think this isn't a bad trade for the New Orleans Pelicans either. When you look at the potential for what they could be getting, not only would they be getting a center, a guy who can play alongside Zion Williamson, which is something that they would definitely need. The Pelicans have a glaring need at center if they're not going to bring back Valanciunas. So that is something that the Pelicans should consider, but also adding the fact that they would be getting an additional first round pick. Now that may be something that the Pelicans can then package if they want to move up into the draft or add another star player to their roster because they have some cap space. So I think it's something that the Pelicans might actually consider. And then when you think about that potential, you think about adding someone like a Dyson Daniels to this roster, someone who can come in and play 25 28 minutes per game, whether it be a starter or as a backup. I would actually probably like him if he was in the starting lineup. He's a very tenacious defender. He's someone who can really get into opposing guards and someone who's got some size to him as well. He's not like, this one of these tiny 6'2", 6'2" point guards. He's got some size. He's obviously young. He needs some more molding, but being with a head coach like Mike Budenholzer, I think that's something that could come to him very quickly. And then adding someone like Larry Nance, who's got the energy, he's got the athleticism, he's going to be blocking shots, he's going to be running the lane, he's going to be, getting out there on fast breaks. He's definitely someone that I think the Suns could benefit with having and then you lose Nurkic, and then that, kind of as a drag, you lose that first round pick, but then you still have options in terms of what you can do via other trades with a guy like Nasir Little, or looking for guys and with the veteran minimum in free agency, your Andre Drummonds, JaVale McGee, guys like that who have a high likelihood of becoming available as well. So yes, I do like the trade for the Suns, but it actually might be a win-win situation, and the Pelicans could find some benefit in this too. They have the cap space to take on Jusuf Nurkic's second year. He's not an expiring contract. He's got another year left on his deal. So, and then they would be acquiring a pick that they could then use to package to get something else if they need it. I think the Pelicans, if the Suns were to make this offer, I think the Pelicans should legitimately take a serious look at it.
You kind of switching me up again, CJ. I don't know. You brought up the points of, they have the salary cap, and then again, they want to extend Herb Jones. They want to keep Trey Murphy. They want to keep this young core going. So Brandon Ingram's apparently on the rumor streak. He could be possibly out. So they would have the cap space. They'd have the flexibility. And then you brought up how you kind of like Davion Mitchell in a previous trade, how Budenholzer can kind of turn him to that Drew Holiday build. What's not to say that he can do that with Dyson Daniels as well? Maybe not as explosive on the defensive side, but definitely a solid defender and a very key playmaker. Could be a great, setter up for this offense. CJ, before we finish though, before we kind of head out, I do want to get to, the stats, kind of looking at these graphics. So obviously looking, Jusuf Nurkic, as we all know for the Suns, was solid, averaged around 11 points, 11 rebounds per game with 4 assists, with a block and a steal. Has had some trouble, being a defensive presence down low and finishing at the rim. When looking at Dyson Daniels, again, young player, has untapped potential, but 6'8" point guard, solid on from the corner, 3% around 41%. And looking at those stats there, 6 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. This is a guy that is a guy who gets you triple doubles, a guy who does all the smart, intangible plays. And then looking at Larry Nance Jr. again, small ball five, key rebounder, key rim protector, and blocker. And then again, a little undersized at 6'8" for that center position, but I truly think alongside guys like, um, guys, if we brought in Andre Drummond as, another big or another veteran guy like JaVale McGee, I still think he could seemingly fit in and still get his time in with these minutes. CJ,
Yeah, I think when you just look at, those particular pieces and how they could benefit the individual teams when we're looking at this trade, Nurkic can fill that role at center that the Pelicans would need. They can't just roll Zion out there at the five. It's just not going to work. That's not his style of play. That's not where he's best suited. And if they end up moving off of guys like Brandon Ingram, they're going to need some other pieces to fill in some of those gaps, particularly in the rebounding department. They don't want to just, let up on the boards. Nurkic is still a solid rebounder. He's still a solid piece, particularly on the offensive end. And, when you have a guy like Zion who's blocking shots, left and right, you don't necessarily need Nurkic defending the paint as much as that would have been his responsibility in Phoenix. Then flip to potentially what the Phoenix Suns could get out of this deal. When you look at Dyson Daniels, I think he's got the potential to really blossom into a true starter in this league, a true NBA starting caliber point guard. And I think if it's got what Mike Budenholzer can like put his hands on him, shift that clay around and really like turn him into, the guy that he really wants. I think Dyson Daniels would have the opportunity to excel. Plus, you're playing alongside guys like Devin Booker and Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant. There are going to be open shots all over the place for you. Plenty of opportunities for you to also shine in your own role. And then you have a guy like Larry Nance. He's a perfect fit for that small ball five, like you talked about. He's someone who can play very well alongside a guy like Kevin Durant. He's almost like a perfect partner for those small ball lineups for a player like Kevin Durant. Larry Nance is good in pick and roll. He's not necessarily a good pick and pop guy, but obviously that's not necessarily something that you need with a guy who you're thinking about bringing in off the bench. So you don't need him necessarily to fill all those holes necessarily that you would need when you're trying to run pick and rolls, but you just need him to be able to do something. He's a great lob threat, good in the dunker spot. He'd definitely be a reliable and valuable piece if this trade were to become a reality.
I think so too, and I think that the Suns would also help out as well, moving off of a contract in $18 million. Even though you're bringing in little smaller contracts, that helps out for the future, helps out for the ability with this squad with roster construction and allowing this team to just be broken down little by little and to help out in that second apron, depending if they want to move off some bigger guys in the future. Then they have some more flexibility as well. CJ, I'd like to say thank you so much for talking and breaking this down with me. For you guys tuning in on the channel here, if you guys enjoy the content, if you guys enjoy the breakdown of the Suns looking at their top offseason moves and a possible Jusuf Nurkic trade, CJ and I would appreciate if you guys check out the videos linked at the top, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're around less than 200 subscribers, or around 200 subscribers away from 1,000 subscribers. So if you guys do enjoy the content, you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything revolving around this team, hit that subscribe button, as this is the place for you guys. From your hosts Bruce and CJ, we'll catch you guys in the next video, and go Phoenix Suns.